Hey, welcome back to Holistic Speaker Training. I'm Seth Braun, and I spent 3 years writing this book, Indestructible Success, Creative Entrepreneurship and the Art of Small Business. Blood, sweat, and tears for 3 years, 12 different versions, 30 pre-readers, 100 people market testing it. I gotta tell you, it was a labor of love, and there's some really good content in here. You should pick it up. It's really useful. There's a whole chapter dedicated to marketing, and this is one of the weak points for most holistic professionals. And yet, you want to approach marketing with authenticity, with transparency, with a sense of deep moral and ethical integrity. And to do that, there's a question you have to be asking yourself if you're going to be speaking to build your practice or developing a professional speaking career, and that is, who is my ideal client? And to answer that question, we created a course called Master Your Target Market. And in that course, we take you through 3 steps, which leads to 2 very important outcomes. The first step is called niche mapping. In this process, you determine what your inner motivation is, what the outer economic reality is, the problems you can solve, and the demographics you can reach. A very novel approach, a visually engaging, a 4-quadrant approach that helps you to finally figure this out. Because you know what? A lot of people have studied this with business coaches and they're left feeling confounded and confused. This begins to clear that up. The second step in the Master Your Target Market process is to build an ideal client profile. And this ideal client profile is a real person that has a name, they have a city they live in, they have an age, they have an occupation, if they have a family or not, how much money they make, what they're interested in, the magazines they read, etc. It's an amalgamation of real people and research, but in your mind you create this avatar, this imaginary person that you begin to communicate with in your marketing material. And we'll tell you why that's really important in just a moment. The final step in the Master Your Target Market process is called the value proposition, and this is your marketing DNA. This gives you the material that you can clone and create all the rest of your content. And the great thing about it is because you're building on this niche map, your inner motivation, outer reality, problems you can solve, demographic you can relate to, you've created an ideal client profile based on this. Your value proposition has built-in integrity, built-in problems you can solve, demographics you can relate to, built-in mission, built-in purpose. All of it gets combined. Now, once you have these 3 things in place, you get 2 really great resources. One is you have a process for creating titles and content. And the way that you do that is you imagine 1,000 of your ideal clients in an auditorium. And the lights are dim, and the MC says, "Next up is Jane Smith." And ladies and gentlemen, we have an agreement with Jane Smith that if her talk title is compelling, you will stay and give 100% of your focus. But if the talk title is not compelling to you, you can leave now. And when you go through this process and you do this visualization to create titles for your talks, it's going to integrate all of those different pieces: mission, connection, problem you can solve, skills. Everything's going to be coherent and congruent. And you'll come up with really great titles from which to build your talks. The second resource you're going to get is you're going to know what venues are going to be appropriate for speaking. And you begin to be more selective about where you speak, and you begin to be strategic about where you speak, so that it's a place where your ideal clients hang out, and it's a place where you can really make the most impact. So one of the overlooked questions that we see is, who's my ideal client? And it's a question you need to ask yourself as a professional, but especially if you're going to use speaking to build your practice, or if you'd like to develop a professional speaking path. This has been video number 3 in the second series of 10, or video number 13. Stay tuned for number 4 in this second series of 10. How do I build trust with my audience? Stay tuned.